Okay, so this is day 12 and I'm going to carry on talking about the brain. This sentence I learnt being on a course with Dax Moy, and it says, what he said was, what gets fired together gets wired together. Now what he's talking about really are your habits. They weren't your habits straight away. It was a behaviour that you had, and then you carried on with that behaviour that turned into a habit. Okay, so to give you an example on this, say you started working and you had a really stressful day, and you come home and you open that bottle of wine and some chocolate, and in that moment you really enjoy having it, and you're like, oh, this feels good. That triggers a hormone, dopamine, your feel-good hormone. Now again, you have another stressful day and you go and get yourself a bottle of wine and some chocolate. Again, you feel really good having it. You're like, oh, this feels nice. It triggers again dopamine. Now the more you have that habit, the more that you do that behavior, the more it turns into a habit. But what you are doing is that you are strengthening that fired and wired connection to that emotion. So that emotion that you're feeling of feeling stressed, not just through work, you could just generally have a stressful day. You naturally want to open that bottle of wine and chocolate. It'll be a natural thing for you to do. You won't even consciously know you're doing it. Subconsciously, you're just doing it. And it can be sometimes you're like, oh, I've drinking a bottle of wine. Now, the brain is always looking for threat, okay? The most important thing that brain wants to do is keep you safe. So to give you like an example of what the brain is always looking for, one, do you know what, if you're moving home, we all know it's one of the most stressful things to be doing. But if you're trying to make changes at the same time of moving home, I've got to be honest with you, it's not going to happen. Like, don't even worry about it. Move home, get yourself settled, and then you can think about making changes. If you're in a broken up relationship, it's a form of threat, it's a form of stress. Feeling alone, as I said in the other video, our mammal brain wants to feel connected, wants to feel like we're in a tribe, wants to feel loved. If we are feeling alone, it's a form of threat. Naturally, just general stress, a dog barking at you, or even just, as I said about moving home, but even just changes. So you trying to change your diet, and if you try and change it dramatically as well, that can be a massive form of stress that the brain won't like, and it will try and stop you from making the changes. So then you bring back all your habits. So when you say like, oh, I self-sabotage my diet, no, you haven't. It's that your brain wasn't ready for you making that change. Once you realize what you are doing, so once you realize, okay, having this glass of wine and chocolate isn't serving me, it isn't helping me for what I want to achieve, what's triggering it? Why is this actually, why am I constantly going for that bottle of wine and that chocolate? What is actually triggering me to do that? Once you've looked at that, then it's like, okay, that trigger's going to happen, but what can I do instead of having the glass of wine? So it could be that you have a nice relaxing bath. It could be that you go for a walk. It could be literally anything. Just think, what could it be a little bit healthier than what I'm doing now? By slowly making the changes, your brain will feel safe because you're slowly doing it. And also you will notice that what will happen is that wired and fired connection you had with that wine will die down. It will always be there. Once that connection's happened, it's always there. but you're trying to diet down, you're not focusing on that, you're focusing on somewhere else, and you're firing and wiring that connection and making that stronger. Great example, people who give up smoking. They always say once like they're giving up, there's always that tiny little bit of like, if they had a really stressful day and someone offered them, they could quite easily say yes to having a cigarette. And that's partly because that connection is always there. But they've been able to diet down to then find a new, stronger connection to try and help them not go and have that cigarette. Okay? So what I want you to do is really think about what are you doing, what behaviour are you doing that's not serving you, and what is the trigger for that. Once you know what that trigger is, then think about, okay, that's the trigger, but what could I do, what sort of behaviour could I do or introduce that can turn into a habit that I'm doing instead, that's going to help me to achieve my goal that I want to do. Take care.